Welcome back to What She Said Sports. There's a lot to unpack here. All right. So, first, I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. New subs, new followers, new commentary, new engagement, over 56,000 views. Thank y'all so much. We going up. I appreciate y'all for riding out with me and appreciating the content. Thank you to the new members. Thank you to my day ones and What She Said friends and family. All right. So, y'all know I like to basically just get right to the point and point out the fact that there's an update. So, today's going to piggyback off of yesterday. Yesterday, we talked about how Donald Sterling lost his team due to racist comments heard on audio. And I presented some very factual and documented information about the ugly history of discrimination against Black QBs in particular, and the NFL's documented $1 billion lawsuit um, trying to end race norming, which is a practice, and they had policies saying what? That Black people, players in the NFL, had lower cognitive functioning than white NFL players. Therefore, Black people are inferior to whites or have lower cognitive functioning than whites because this rests with the brain. The brain is the center of your being. And, a lot is happening right now. Like it was shared that Target's CEO had his salary slashed by 45% due to low sales, right? And we know why. Because Black people, majority, and others, few others, took a stand. Black people said, no, we're not doing this. Same thing, a lot of people, not just Black people, but a lot of people took a stand against Tesla. Same thing happened, their stock plummeted. And today it was announced that they settled a lawsuit. This one employee was told, welcome to the plantation. And that made me think about what we talked about with the plantation logic of the NFL, and in particular, the way Shedeur Sanders was treated. Many people recognized it as buck breaking, trying to break his spirit, trying to break his confidence, that he was being penalized because he is confident, he knows who he is, he comes from a good family, and he does not fit a stereotype that they created about Black people. So essentially trying to get him in line and put him in his place. And we talked about how the NFL seems to be stuck with the plantation fantasies, using the draft as a slave auction, if you will, and just essentially having a lack of respect for the Black players and how they're relegated, to bodies in terms of the positions they play, and how it is that the NFL holds in high regard. The most important position on the team is the quarterback. We talked about how Black players, although quarterbacks do not make up the majority of the league, they have ascended to, with this draft, with Shedeur Sanders being QB1 in the first round, like we all expected him to be, ascended to the majority of starting quarterbacks in the league. That's phenomenal, considering Black players are not the majority of quarterbacks overall. You would think, it's just because most of the QBs are Black. Most of the QBs are not Black. Most of the QBs are not Black. Today, I said we would take a look at the money list. What jumped out to me when I looked at the money list is the quarterbacks are changing. You have the first five, looking one particular way, and then you have the next set of five, which round out the top 10, looking a different set of ways. So it shows you that things are changing. And I pointed out that the NFL went through extremes with using Shedeur as collateral damage, setting out to defame him for the sole purposes of justifying Jackson Dart as the second QB off the board, which was expected to be Shedeur. And same thing with Jalen Milroe. Tyler Shaw going to New Orleans at number 40 when it was first mock was that it was Jalen Milroe. And Jalen Milroe is better than Tyler Shaw, hands down. And Shedeur is better than Jackson Dart. There's no question about it. There's never even been a comparison because it would be obvious. So Shedeur and Jalen Milroe are two elite Black quarterbacks. Both were snubbed, pushed further down in the draft, a practice that the NFL has had that I pointed out multiple times, how badly the NFL I guess you could say, penalizes Black quarterbacks. They put hurdles in their way. They discriminate against them. They make their lives hell. And because they're getting paid, it's okay. One of the patterns that popped out of behavior by the NFL, people say, well, there's a lot more Black quarterbacks now. Right. But they pay the price. Yes, they make a lot of money, but they get put through a lot of hell. The number of sacks against Bryce Young, Caleb Williams, Justin Fields. Justin Fields, in my opinion, found shelter in Pittsburgh along with Russell Wilson. We saw how Russell Wilson was treated on the field. We saw how Jalen Hurts' coach treated him. So there's a lot here. And today, what we wanted to do, since we talked about who should lose the NFL team and be forced to sell in the same way Donald Sterling was, because Sterling was heard on audio making racist comments about Black people, and the NFL has a documented pattern in history of it. And we watched 32 teams collude against Shedeur Sanders after it was revealed that owners told the GMs take that entitled so-and-so off the board. We know where the entitled commentary came from, the New York Giants. We also know that there was a prank, and I verified the order of events. The prank occurred first, right before Tyler Shaw was taken, and later in the evening, Donald Trump lambasted the league by referring to them as stupid. So that was day one. Shedeur wasn't taken till what, day 3? Day 2, I don't even know no more, but it was 144, so day 3. And the talk and the consensus, whether Cleveland admits it or not, is that they were forced after Donald Trump's call to take Shedeur Sanders to draft him. So that explains something else that we have talked about here. It explains why Cleveland and their call to Shedeur had a very condescending tone. And we did a call comparison. We listened to Shedeur's first. We listened to Dylan Gabriel's. And what happened? We saw a stark contrast. We saw condescending messages sent to Shedeur. Come in, put your head down, work like he's a slacker. You're going to have to earn your keep. Like he's a slacker. And a lot of people didn't like that. And they still don't. So Cleveland's not innocent here. And then Dylan Gabriel, hey, how you doing, buddy? We glad to have you back. We can't wait till you come. 3 different people talk to him, yada, yada, yada. They talk to the family. I mean, totally different. So I listened to interviews today with Andrew Berry because I know I'd listened to it before. And I went back and listened again. So we're going to analyze the press conference, mostly Andrew Berry's conversation regarding why they drafted Shedeur, because it piggybacks off the video that we discussed yesterday when Mel Kiper Jr. Basically was saying what? That the NFL insiders told him before the NFL draft that Shedeur Sanders was not the quarterback they were looking for now. They're not looking for quarterbacks like Shedeur Sanders now. So, of course, he went into his segment regarding why not. Are you saying pocket passers aren't valued in the league anymore? And he basically talked about every pocket passer and how it is that they're successful. So why would you just move away from them? Because they're saying that what? A dual threat quarterback like Lamar Jackson or like Jalen Milroe are preferable. If that's the case, why wasn't the number 2 QB off the board who ran a 4.37 already compared to Jalen Milroe, took his team under Nick Saban to the SEC title game. Why wasn't he the second QB off the board if dual threat quarterbacks are what they're in favor of? Mind you, dual threat quarterbacks have caught hell. In fact, there was a term that they used, the curse of the dual threat quarterback. They actually said that Lamar Jackson, who's been colluded against 3 times by the NFL, a dual threat quarterback colluded against 3 times by the NFL. One time in particular, when he went to free agency, no team would touch him, not one. But that's who's desirable, dual threat quarterbacks. So Shedeur is what you call a pocket passer, and he's snubbed and not desirable. And Jalen Milroe is snubbed, and Lamar Jackson is snubbed as dual threat quarterbacks. And it was said that Lamar Jackson suffered from the dual threat curse, just like Deshaun Watson, who's already in Cleveland, where Shedeur just went. Then who the hell is it that you want? So we talked about that, right? The consensus is, well, Shedeur is not valued. Coach Prime misjudged his value because he's old school, a retro style QB. And I'm like, that don't make absolutely no sense, because you didn't take a dual threat. And look how y'all treated the dual threats that you already have. Jalen Hurts, pushed down to the second round, number 53. Lamar Jackson, Heisman winner, pushed down to number 32, last player in the league. Deshaun Watson. People are now coming back with Deshaun Watson and saying we think we might know why. He got that guaranteed contract of $240 million after he was accused of what? It's now being discussed because he could have started naming names of other people that was involved. Because what did I say from the beginning about Deshaun Watson? He was not the only one. And Justin Tucker proves that. And there's a big discrepancy in the way their case is even covered. And it was said that all Deshaun Watson did was ask for a trade after they traded his wide receiver 1, which is the equivalent of Travis and Shedeur going to Jacksonville together. Shedeur being the leader of the team, because why? The quarterback is the most important position on the team. And what happens? They say, we'll talk to you, Shedeur, if we decide to trade any of the wide receivers, especially wide receiver 1, Travis Hunter, right? In this scenario. And then what happens? They traded Deshaun Watson's wide receiver 1 to Arizona. Didn't tell him. He was upset. He was painting a picture of some of the incompetence that exists in the league from back then to now. And then suddenly, everything he and others were doing got cast as he was the only one. And of course, he settled. But then I don't think even though he didn't name anybody publicly, I'm pretty sure he has a $240 million contract and they don't even talk about him because they threw him under the bus to punish him. And he wasn't the only one. It was talked about the other players who introduced him to the same women that he had to settle with. So there's a history here of throwing black QBs under the bus, having them sacked excessively, pushing them down in later rounds, which discrimination against black QBs, because the league itself seems to have an issue with black starting quarterbacks taking over the league. And yesterday we put it as, shout out to, I think, Political Lil, who maybe have said that, they were trying to protect the racial hierarchy. They were trying to preserve the racial hierarchy at the QB position, meaning they didn't want Shedeur Sanders becoming number 17 of 32 starting quarterbacks, which would make black starting quarterbacks the majority. And in their minds, it would upset the racial hierarchy. Because why? They think that black NFL players have lower cognitive functioning than whites. So today we're going to pick up where we left off. We're going to listen to an interview, a clip of Andrew Berry. And then we're going to talk about who should lose their NFL team after the deliberate the deliberate, how should I say it? The deliberate discrimination against Shedeur Sanders, the deliberate humiliation of Shedeur Sanders, the deliberate, premeditated public humiliation plot against Shedeur Sanders. So who should lose their team? Well, let's start right here. Okay. Yesterday, what did I say? I said the New York Giants are somehow involved in this. Why? Because the prank caller was wearing an Ole Miss sweatshirt. Jackson Dart went to Ole Miss. The phone number came from one of the people in the room. After the NFL sent it to 2,000 people, the son of the defensive coordinator of the Atlanta Falcons is supposedly the one that retrieved the number from his father's work device, which was not locked apparently, and gave it to the Ole Miss fellow. I said, do you understand that the sun, the moon, and the stars have to align for this to happen? Because when the call was made to Shedeur, Tyler Shaw was getting ready to be drafted. At the time, we didn't know this. People thought it was going to be Shedeur. Y'all saw Alvin Kamara at CU. Coach Prime liked the black and gold. The city loved the idea of it. Then Derek Carr was suddenly mysteriously out for the rest of the year, which paved the way for Shedeur. But Cam Jordan told us that the Saints have never drafted a QB1 in the first round since Archie Manning, whose name keeps popping up. So we're like, okay, how did this young man know to tell Shedeur he was going to have to wait a little longer? How did he know Shedeur would not be drafted to New Orleans? Because he had inside information, right? We already found out that even though the NFL said that the call happened within and isolated to a few people by the Atlanta Falcons organization, namely the DC and a few other people, that's not true. We found out actually it was the NFL itself, that the NFL had lied to cover itself, scapegoated the Atlanta Falcons organization, when it was in fact the NFL that sent out Shedeur Sanders information to 2,000 people who do not need to know, all 32 teams, with an email attachment that is a transaction of players who are going to get cut, known as a waiver wire. So they were doing what they did with Lamar Jackson, with his mental aptitude test results, and CJ Stroud's mental aptitude test results. They were making a mockery of them. They were passing it around and sharing it to everybody. Very sensitive information. Nothing was confidential when it came to Black quarterbacks that they wanted to ostracize. And that's how they made themselves feel better about the lie they said about Black people having lower cognitive functioning. Okay, we get ready to pay you $40 million, but your brain is less than mine, so we're just using you for talent. That's the message. They're just bodies doing the work to make them money. They're not respected. You don't respect anybody if you believe that their brain functions at a lower rate than whites. So they make fun of these guys behind their backs. They think they're keeping it in-house throughout the organization. If there were interviews by law firms or anybody else, Homeland Security, anybody, they could interview 2,000 people and ask them what they knew about it, because that's how widespread the data breach was, and NFL lied. So it looks like the NFL itself was trying to cover that it was implicated in the very public humiliation of Shedeur Sanders. And you're like, why would the NFL itself do that? We thought maybe this was just the teams. No. The NFL itself has a hierarchy. The league, the owners, the franchise, and the players, and then everybody else. So we were like, okay, who's getting ready to lose their team then? If something that happened to Shedeur was done at the team level, the executive level. It was an executive's iPad that was breached. and accessed by his son. And the media to this moment has not discussed the person with the Ole Miss sweatshirt. What did I say? That person is either related to them, meaning the Atlanta Falcons, or it has something to do with the New York Giants, because it was inside information that the Ole Miss sweatshirt guy had. So look at where we are today. Come to find out, the Ole Miss connection is indeed, in fact, right through the New York Giants, who has a pipeline from the football program at the QB position directly to the New York Giants. This is their fourth QB. Older gentleman, Archie Manning and Eli Manning and Jackson Dart. And now it's out there. Let's see if ESPN talks about it. I doubt. The GM of the New York Giants, who number one should have been fired after fumbling Saquon Barkley. Number one, if he was not here, this would have not happened. But since they refused to fire him because they like to protect people that look like them rather than black people, his daughter goes to Ole Miss with Jackson Dart. She penned typed or whatever, a heartfelt letter to Jackson Dart, and it said that she is somehow involved in the decision for it to be Jackson Dart. So I said it seemed like the Mannings get to determine who come out of their beloved Eli and Archie Manning's Ole Miss. The New York Giants, that's who they wanted. The New York Giants today has never in the history of that franchise, in the league been around since 1920, had a black QB1, something Shedeur Sanders was going to be. And initially we were like, I said it, y'all never had to get Shedeur. You don't want to get Shedeur because Arch Manning coming through in a year or two, Shedeur would have a 4-year contract, and then you'd have to make some changes. And even if Shedeur is successful, you want to save a spot for Arch Manning. I have no problem with that. You can have whoever you want to have at your quarterback. But what you don't get to do is defame, fabricate lies, come up with flimsy personal bias that's subjective with no evidence, not rooted in fact, to drag this young man down because you want somebody else. And I pointed out yesterday on the call with the podcast from Mel Kiper Jr., where the NFL insider said before the combine, where all of the BS-ery started, he's cocky. And Jackson Dart has his head on backwards, and no, it's just crickets. All of that started at the combine. But before the combine, on or about February 15th through the 20th, an NFL insider told Mel Kiper Jr. the NFL does not want quarterbacks like Shedeur Sanders. And Mel Kiper Jr. said, well, what's wrong with pocket passers? We can't be successful, right? So I want you to listen to Cleveland, who's not innocent in any of this, because you heard me say multiple times, if you hang out on this podcast enough, that Cleveland was crushing on Shedeur the hardest. And it's true, it's documented. They had extensive meetings with Shedeur. Shedeur even said he plays PS5 or whatever you call it, the team, the college football game, or the Madden game with the Browns. I'm pretty sure he thought he was going to the Browns. And even after CU's pro day, the Browns had another meeting, and this time it was Travis and Shedeur. I listened to the Browns GM be asked this question. Are you aware that you traded away Travis Hunter and you traded up from the 5th round or whatever? You tried to trade up to get Shedeur in the 5th round. You know what his response was? I never really thought about it like that. No, I didn't. He should not have a job, just like the GM in New York. And since the connection to Ole Miss, the only piece of the puzzle we're missing is exactly who that young man is with that sweatshirt on. Is it the GM's son? Is it the daughter's boyfriend? Somebody's cousin? What? They're related. Because when you make $1.6 million and you're an executive and y'all are all watching the draft somewhere, and you have 2 overgrown children who make a phone call with information they were provided within less than 24 hours of being made available, this was all a setup. All a setup. And it's not a coincidence that there's an Ole Miss connection because of Jackson Dart, because Emmanuel Acho tried to rub Jackson Dart into Deion Sanders Jr.'s face. And if you ask me, the whole Sanders family likely has a lawsuit, not just Shedeur. Because why would a media personality antagonize Deion Sanders Jr., who's not in the draft, about Jackson Dart being the number 2 QB off the board? And how did Emmanuel Acho know? Inside information. So here's what they did. What they did with the inside information is they passed it around. When Shedeur sent his number supposedly a day before the draft to the NFL, instead of just filing it away under NFL draft prospects and going in and updating his phone number or adding his phone number and saving it and closing the file, they decided to make fun of the fact that they knew he was going to be cut from whatever team he went to, because that was the draft strategy. And since Boomer Esiason told us that the NFL GMs, the owners themselves said to take Shedeur off their board, it explains why he went round for round for round without being drafted. He was not going to be drafted. And after the prank happened, they kept it pushing. But once the prank went viral from well-off media and then from social media, they got nervous, and whoever seemed to have disconnected the number that they apparently called from. Then you saw a cover-up. Oh, so-and-so got pranked. Not by these 2. And again, I saw it today in NFL Insider. Abdul Carter got pranked. Not by these people. The prank era is ridiculous, but we knew it wasn't anything to be taken seriously. That's a slight against Shedeur. How did he not know that it was a prank? For one, he was outside. When you listen to his call, you hear background noise from his side, and he's trying to hear, and he's trying to get himself to a place where he can hear better. So he really couldn't hear who it was. He just heard Mickey Loomis, GM of the Saints. And you could see Shedeur trying to get to a place where he could hear. So for people to say we knew it was just a prank, we never took it seriously. Was anybody else's recorded? Was anybody else being pranked right before the team that they were speculated to go to? And they were being told, you know what, you're going to have to wait till later. And it was recorded at the exact time. No. So they in cover-up mode. My question is, did the NFL ever pay a fine for sharing Shedeur Sanders' phone number to 2,000 people who need to know? No. No accountability. Just only scapegoating the Atlanta Falcons like they scapegoated Shedeur Sanders because they wanted to draft Jackson Dart to the Giants. That's at the team level. That's the subplot, the phone call to rub it in his face and humiliate him. And then over here on the other track, the bigger plot to preserve the racial hierarchy for quarterbacks, to prevent Shedeur Sanders from ever becoming a QB1, because then he would be number 17 at QB1 of 32 teams, making the majority of QB1s and starting QBs Black. That is exactly what was meant when the NFL Insider told Mel Kiper Jr. the NFL does not want quarterbacks, plural, like Shedeur Sanders. To move forward with the farce that he's overvalued because he's a pure pocket passer is some bullshit. Further bullshit. I'm not mad at Mel Kiper Jr. for pointing out that pocket passes are the ones that have been highly successful to date. He even said, oh, okay, you want the running around guy. Oh, okay, if that's where we're going. But pocket passes are still valued. I respect him for making that argument because it's valid. And you know what makes it even more BS that they didn't want Shedeur? Because he's a pure pocket passer. Not because they didn't get 4.37 speed, Jalen Milroe dual threat QB, but because at the number 2 spot, instead of a pure pocket passer, Shedeur Sanders, who's black, they drafted a pure pocket passer QB who's white and lesser talented than Shedeur. So the fabricated, flimsy narrative that was completely false was all fabricated. So the media itself would report that Shedeur was trash. Just like when Jalen Milroe was at Alabama, they said he was trash. Jalen Milroe's QBR is less than 0.2% differential from Jackson Dart's. Jalen Milroe has gone to the SEC title game. Jackson Dart has not. They worked really hard while Milroe was at Alabama to hold him down. And the furthest they could push him down was 2. And they worked really hard in this draft process, starting before the combine, to push Shedeur down out of reach as far as possible away from QB1. So when the day of the draft, you heard analysts say, wow, Shedeur Sanders doesn't even have a first round grade. He was locked out of the first round. Had he gone in the first round, he would be QB1 on the depth chart, just like Cam Ward is. And he'd be number 17, and black QBs would be the majority. Instead, they were like, he gonna go to second round. If Jalen Hurts went 53 in the second round and just won a Super Bowl and has been twice and has been QB as long as I can remember, that wasn't far enough to push Shedeur. So they was gonna make him go undrafted because that's a tall, tough road to climb. And after Trump called them stupid, and the owner of the Browns was forced to take Shedeur and forced his GM, that's why they looked like they did, bewildered, like, oh my God, we don't want this. Why? Why you don't want to start quarterback? Because the plan was to prevent the majority of QB1s being black, which is why they drafted Dylan Gabriel and not Shedeur or Travis. Because if I draft Travis, why am I not getting Shedeur? So I trade away Travis to Jacksonville. And I get away with drafting Dylan Gabriel at 94. He's not black, so he doesn't count to the majority. This was all a poorly orchestrated, premeditated plot with a subplot, which is the prank call, to publicly humiliate Shedeur Sanders so that they could justify why he was going to go undrafted, even though they knew the day before the draft, because they sent out his phone number with an email attachment of a waiver wire report, which shows who's getting cut. So they already know he's getting cut. And just like they know he was getting cut before the draft, they knew on or before February 20th that the NFL did not want him. So the owner saying take that entitled whatever off the board was performative. He was never getting drafted. The prank going viral and Trump coming through kicked the door in for Shedeur. So him being in the 5th round, essentially by their philosophy, which is why you already hear he has to try to make the team. He's likely not going to make the team. Only 4 to 5% of 5th round players who are drafted remain in the NFL. And they were like, fine, since we can't take him at undrafted, wait till the 5th round. Andrew Berry, the GM, was asked, when you went to work the day you actually did select Shedeur Sanders, what were you thinking? Because he was on the board the morning when you started your day. He said, I was just thinking, well, we'll see how low he goes. And then we'll see. So let's listen to this video. Now that the Ole Miss connection is one puzzle piece away from being solved and points directly, currently, to the New York Giants. Right now, that's who needs to sell their team. And we're going to come back to that. They should have fired the GM. And now you see, this is why you don't keep bad people around, because now the owner in trouble. And even though they consider themselves incestuous and excessively close, it don't matter. Because just like Tesla is taking a hit financially because people are disgusted with them, just like Target has taken a hit financially because people are disgusted with them, a lot of people are disgusted with the NFL. And I think some of y'all might be surprised to know who the true customers and fans are of the NFL, and it ain't what you think. But if you think about the country we live in, then you probably gonna get it right. So it's not out of the question. All right.
And then, Shedeur.
So let's move on. Let me go back. All right. I'm going to go back. You see what's on the screen. Yesterday, Mel Kiper Jr., NFL insider, on or about February 20, on or before February 21st, before the combine, Shedeur Sanders is not the type of quarterback, or quarterbacks like Shedeur Sanders is not who the NFL is looking for now. They told that to Mel Kiper Jr. because there's a huge platform and we would all hear it. But only 2 podcasters actually, for the most part, talked about it. I just happened to comment under one of the 2 podcasters. And I remembered it because it was the craziest thing I had ever heard. Because why not? He's a star. And that might explain why Andrew Berry's demeanor is what it is and why they were so condescending towards him. Take a listen. All right. So you see right here, Andrew Berry, the Cleveland Browns general manager, has described Shedeur Sanders' playing style as having a retro or classic style of play. What did the commentary from Mel Kiper Jr. after the insider told him that the NFL is not looking for quarterbacks like Shedeur Sanders say? Oh, you don't want pocket passers no more. That's old school for the most part. That's what they're alleging. So Andrew Berry referring to Shedeur as retro or classic is trying to justify his value being lowered, why he doesn't think it's a blockbuster acquisition, etc.
And then,
all right.
Shedeur, we talk oftentimes about quarterback being the most important position in the sport. We obviously spend a lot of time with Shedeur throughout the process. He's highly accurate, can play well from the pocket, very productive college career. And, we felt like it wasn't necessarily the plan going into the weekend to select 2 quarterbacks, but as we talked about, we do believe in best player available. We do believe in positional value, and we didn't necessarily expect him to be available in the 5th round. Like, he was a good, solid prospect at the most important position. We felt like it got to a point where he was probably mispriced, relative to the draft.
Okay, did you hear just what he said? We feel like he was mispriced relative to the draft. What does that sound like? He cost too much in the beginning. Shedeur Sanders has the #1 selling jersey of all rookies. He didn't say we thought he was mispriced relative to where we drafted him. He said relative to the draft. I've listened to him talk a couple times. He knows his way around a circle. Keep listening.
Really, the acquisition cost was pretty light, and it's a guy that we think can outproduce his draft.
I've spent a lot of time with Shedeur. We know what he's about. He's coming in here to work just like all of our other players.
We view him as a highly accurate pocket passer. He does a really good job of protecting the ball. He has enough of the physical characteristics, whether it's arm strength or mobility. Like all young players, there are things to improve. I think probably much has been said about the number of sacks he's taken. Some of that is environment, and some of that is his improvement on his end, for sure. But he has probably a little bit more of a, call it retro or classic style of play. Our message
Okay. So he has a classic or retro style of play. When Mel Kiper Jr. did his assessment of pocket passers, he was defending why pocket passers, why would you move away from that? So here is the lie, okay? We don't want Shedeur Sanders. He fell in the draft because he's an old school quarterback. We want dual threat quarterbacks. Now, y'all know that's a lie. Since them dual threat quarterbacks have been coming through the door, they catch hell. Because that's why the numbers are right here with Shedeur getting ready to tip the majority. And while it's true, Shedeur is, I don't consider him a pure pocket passer, but while he's, in my opinion, a hybrid, they don't want that. That's what he's saying. So y'all let me know in the comments what y'all think about that, because this is bullshit. So they supposedly took him even though he's not what the NFL is looking for, because he's a retro style classic QB like Josh Allen, who's working to become a pocket passer. I mean, working to become a pocket passer, because he was a dual threat. Or like who? The number 2 QB taken off the board. Jackson Dart is a pocket passer. So all they did was defame Shedeur so they could try to justify not taking an elite black quarterback who would be a QB1 and would start tipping the scales, the racial hierarchy in the majority of black QB1s who start in the league. In fact, I read on right here, I read that Jackson Dart, right here, third paragraph, first sentence, the rookie quarterback Jackson Dart will likely be buried on the depth chart. So y'all see what happened then, right? They pushed Shedeur down so far out of reach of QB1 because they think they playing God. They think he can't reach it. They think no doors could open, just like the prank was exposed, just like Trump coming through. They're thinking in their own strength. We're going to push him down so far he can't get to QB1. We're going to defame him so it can be justifiable and nobody would ask if we're stupid. But isn't that exactly what happened? Isn't that exactly what happened? And that's how Shedeur got drafted. The prank and Trump. So essentially, they discriminated against Shedeur Sanders. Plotted, premeditated. Discrimination against Shedeur Sanders using public harassment and defamation to tarnish and destroy his character so they could have an excuse to take him off the board and let him go undrafted. But thank God, he ends up in the 5th round because he's a pure pocket passer. But then with the second pick, which should have been Shedeur, they get Jackson Dart, who you see right here, paragraph 3, sentence 1, will be buried on the depth chart as a pure pocket passer. So they wanted Jackson Dart. They didn't want Shedeur. Aside from the fact that Jackson Dart went to Ole Miss and to the Giants, there's not much difference other than melanin. And the majority is held at half. Half and half. Cam is 16. Shedeur would be 17. Milroe would have been 18. So that was a very extreme thing to do because you don't want black quarterbacks being the majority.
And then, Shedeur, we talk oftentimes about quarterback being the most important position in the sport. We obviously spend a lot of time with Shedeur throughout the process. He's highly accurate, can play well from the pocket, very productive college career. And, we felt like it wasn't necessarily the plan going into the weekend to select 2 quarterbacks, but.
So here's my question for Cleveland. Since you courted Shedeur so heavily, and then you had dinner with Shedeur and Travis, when did you move away from Shedeur and decide to go with Dylan Gabriel? That's a question that needs to be answered. And since you heard him start his conversation that quarterbacks are the most important position on the team, he's verifying. we didn't take the best one even for the most important position on the team. We didn't take the best one. He said it. We don't look at this as a blockbuster trade. We don't look at this as a blockbuster acquisition. He's a retro style classic quarterback that fits the narrative that was pushed before the combine. Now, the man didn't say publicly why they didn't want Shedeur. Mel Kiper Jr. went with the pocket passer. We don't know what the hell he meant, but based on what I saw, it's because he's black. Somebody asked yesterday, how can you say it's racism if in 2024 there were 3 black quarterbacks in the top 10? Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and Michael Penix Jr. Well, let me answer it. And I know I already have. Caleb Williams was sacked 66 times and made fun of for it. Fans were already asking because they knew Shedeur Sanders was going QB1. Even the haters was like, how many times Shedeur going to be sacked? 67? So they use that as public humiliation. Just like passing around the mental aptitude test scores of C.J. Stroud and Lamar Jackson. This is not new. I have posted that they discriminate badly against black quarterbacks in the draft, oftentimes pushing them down. They push Shedeur down the furthest because they know it wouldn't be hard for him to rise. He wasn't getting drafted. He's already been predetermined to get cut. Let's see what happens.
As we talk about, we
Shedeur wants to play.
Best player available. We do believe in positional value, and we didn't necessarily expect him to be available in the in the 5th round. Like he was a good, solid prospect at the most important position. We felt like it got to a point where he was probably mispriced, relative to the draft. Really the acquisition cost was pretty light, and it's a guy that we think can outproduce his draft.
We've spent a lot of time with Shedeur. We know what he's about. He's coming in here to work just like all of our other folks.
We view him as a highly accurate pocket passer. He does a really good job of protecting the ball. He has enough of the physical characteristics, whether it's arm strength or mobility. Like all young players, there are things to improve. I think probably much has been said about the number of sacks he's taken. Some of that is environment, and some of that is his improvement on his end for sure. But he has probably a little bit more of a call it retro or classic style of play. Our message to him is really all of this: like, look, you got to come in and work, and you got to come in and compete. And that's the message. Nothing's given. The interviews, they're a small piece.
Okay, so you got to come in, you got to work, you got to compete. Is that what you say to somebody when you on their draft day, something they've been working towards since Pee Wee football? We listened to Dylan Gabriel's call. That was not the message to him at all. Cleveland is not innocent in this. They were part of the 32 teams that colluded. They got busted and called out with Trump. They might not be the team in the Ole Miss sweater with their connection to Cleveland, but they are clearly going forward with that entitled bull crap. That's where it comes in. You got to compete. You got to work. If he a 5th round pick, you ain't got to tell him that. All 5th round picks know that. They were like, some people, Stefanski, which is the coach to the left, said, well, sometimes we use where they're drafted to motivate them. Shedeur Sanders don't need to be motivated. What I don't like about Cleveland, and I don't trust about Cleveland, they know they have an overcrowded QB room, and they were forced to take him at 5. His name has already been associated with the waiver wire, that they made fun of him when he turned in his phone number, like, we don't need your phone number, buddy. You finna get cut. And 2,000 people knew about it. And that was done supposedly 24 hours before the draft. And if that is the case, then the person who accessed their father's work device didn't have a lot of time to get that number. And then they were all somewhere watching the draft. And a young man from Ole Miss, where Jackson Dart went to school, is the one selected to make the call, not the executive's son. And it was recorded. And they posted it. But if they didn't, it's okay, because Bucky did. Shedeur said it. I didn't give this phone number to anybody but NFL execs and GMs. If that call was not recorded, they would have just blew it off with the rest of the pranks because that's why they did it. They know that every year, increasingly, players get pranks, but what typically doesn't happen, they don't have inside information. They can't tell somebody you're not getting drafted and be right. You can say it, but I don't know it without inside information. And the Ole Miss person didn't get penalized or identified because I knew it was a connection to the Giants. And some fans are saying that not only did the GM's daughter, she's the connection to Jackson Dart, and she wrote this heartfelt letter to Jackson Dart because they went to Ole Miss together, that she liked the videos of the prank and had to close some of her social media. The Ole Miss sweatshirt is somebody that they don't want you to know who it is. I already knew before we found out that his daughter is friends with Jackson Dart, talked about her role in the selection, that it was the New York Giants, because the New York Giants were the only organization to defame Shedeur Sanders. Take a listen.
You know, we certainly do rely a lot more heavily, you know, on our reference work for people who have, you know, been with the prospect for 2, 3, 4 years after school. We felt good with him as a person. You know, he works hard. He's a really good kid. He wants to be great. His teammates, you know, loved him in Colorado, and you know, I know he'll come in here ready to work, you know, ready to try to put his best foot forward.
All right, so he's a good kid. He's ready. I know he'll come in here ready to work, etc. Right? The only thing Barry said, in my opinion, is 2 things: the whole retro style, classic QB. 3 things. We don't consider it a blockbuster deal. And then he grew up like with a lot of attention. That's what he was saying. So nothing's promised to him. So what they're doing is they're keeping up with what they decided, the lie that they told. He's entitled. You got to come in and put your head down. We ain't want to draft you anyway, but you got to come in here and put your head down. We don't value you. You got to earn your keep. But you're a good kid, and you famous already. But that we're not promising you nothing because you got 3 million followers, which is more than we probably have. That's how they're treating him. Like he ain't shit, because they're trying to say that his classic style of QB retro pocket passer is not valuable, but yet they drafted Jackson Dart, who is exactly that. And Shedeur is better than him. Josh Allen is actually that and trying to become Lamar Jackson. And we saw how Lamar Jackson got snubbed. So this was a orchestrated, premeditated plot with a subplot that only needs to identify who was wearing that Ole Miss sweatshirt. And it's likely tied to the New York Giants. And it could be the man's son. He got a son. He could be his son. And they don't want to say it because that would 100% confirm he had inside information. But it already does because of the daughter. Her going to Ole Miss, y'all somehow related. Who it is, it'll come out just like her being identified. So Shedeur Sanders is the best QB in the league. And the Browns had to take him because they got exposed. The NFL got exposed with the prank, and because the prank ended up on CNN. It went on CNN and Trump, but really Trump had a lot to do with that. And the prank, when the NFL started prank and they sent out his phone number to 2,000 people, you don't think they knew, oh shit, we busted? Yeah, they did. The combination of the two has changed the trajectory of the evening. And that's how Shedeur got drafted. Cleveland, even though they passed on Shedeur and Travis, and the GM is on record saying, I didn't realize that I traded away Travis and traded up in the 5th round for Shedeur. You heard him say what? We think the price relative to, I guess they're trying to say price relative to the draft was too high. That's his way of saying, well, we didn't get Shedeur in the first round because he cost too much. But we think he's a bargain at the 5th round. Ain't nobody buying that. You didn't pick him in the first round because just like the other 31 teams didn't pick him in the first round. Y'all colluded against him because you didn't want him to be QB1. And you still colluding against him, keeping up this entitled trope because he's not entitled. Shedeur even told those people multiple times he don't even have a trust fund because Coach Prime don't get down like that. And they didn't care because they couldn't back away from the plan. Okay? That's what they told their fans who are desperate to win. The GM was put on the clock and was told he was going to be fired if he didn't get this draft right, which is why people say he now has 2 QBs that are black, Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. And I say they playing in Russell Wilson's face because he was QB1 in Pittsburgh and they pushed him out, even though they made it to the playoffs. So why would you push him out of Pittsburgh? Because Mike Tomlin, who's black and the coach in Pittsburgh, decided to, via free agency trade or whatever you want to call it, not draft 2 black QBs. Kenny Pickett was the last QB that they drafted in whatever the year that was, and he's white. So Mike Tomlin thought that because he had a winning record for 17 seasons or something like that, or 2017, that he had decision-making ability. And he did until he selected or signed 2 black QBs. Russell Wilson being QB1 and Justin Fields, well, he was supposed to be QB1. Justin Fields ended up QB2. Russ came in at QB2. Justin Fields was 1 and it switched. They didn't like that because you saw how they humiliated Russ in Denver. So then when he goes to Pittsburgh, they wanted him to be QB2. But it switched. They didn't like that. So now Mike Tomlin's basically told you don't have no decision-making abilities because they forced Russ out. And like I said, Justin Fields escaped because he saw the writing on the wall that they were taking the decision-making ability away from Mike Tomlin. He has what you call perceived power, not real power. So he went from signing 2 black quarterbacks and getting to the playoffs with the one that they wanted to be QB2 at QB1 and forced him out of there. And now he got 2 white quarterbacks. Will Howard drafted in the 6th round and 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers. He should have just drafted Shedeur like Isaac Newsom did with Lamar Jackson on the way out. Because whether you know it or not, you're on the way out. Unless you're going to relegate yourself to being told what to do, even though you were head coach. And honestly, there were only 2 teams who were publicly told what to do. Can you guess who they are? You just saw one of them, Cleveland, right before the draft. See, a lot happened right before the draft. Shedeur interviewed with Pittsburgh. It was a wonderful interview. He had already interviewed. Even Barry says it in this longer form of this same video. We had a positive experience with Shedeur. So that meant New York is lying. That means New York is lying. So it's not a stretch to now see that the Ole Miss connection has everything to do with trying to humiliate Shedeur Sanders. Because they prefer Jackson Dart. That's evil. That is evil. So now Mike Tomlin got to figure out what to do. Because right before the draft, he interviewed Shedeur, said positive things. Shedeur said he reminded him of his dad. The next thing you know, the organization doesn't want Shedeur, but Mike Tomlin does. If he would have drafted Shedeur, they would have fired him on the spot. They were literally breathing over his neck in the green room. He said, it's on the record. I have a screenshot of it. There were phone calls coming in where we were getting ready to pick for Shedeur. When we picked that 21, there were phone calls. Guess what was on the phone calls? The narratives that were already proven to be false. But that's what they wanted to go with because it worked to keep Shedeur out the top spot. He said there were phone calls and we had to listen to these phone calls. No, he had to listen to the phone calls because they made the phone calls while he was in front of the people who are above him. He is a coach. So his GM and etc. And they were like, if you take Shedeur, we're going to fire you right now. They didn't say it, but they breathed down his neck so hard and they called him right before he picked to make sure he doesn't pick Shedeur. Let's get this straight. If all 32 teams passed on him 5.5 times, why did they need the narratives to keep Mike Tomlin from picking Shedeur? You know why? Because Mike Tomlin is black and they thought he was going to pick Shedeur like Ozzie Newsome did for Lamar Jackson. That's exactly what happened. And after the draft, even though the headlines before the draft said Mike Tomlin advised to draft Shedeur Sanders at 21 and put him at QB2 behind Aaron Rodgers, who's 42. And after Pittsburgh selected somebody else at 21, Aaron Rodgers decided to play for Pittsburgh. I told people he's waiting to see if they get Shedeur or not, because I wouldn't want Shedeur Sanders behind me either, because he's going to start. That's why they were breathing down Mike Tomlin's neck, because it had already happened. And they knew it was going to happen again. You can't put Russell Wilson or Shedeur Sanders as QB2 because they're going to emerge as QB1. That's facts. So you got to push Shedeur way over here. And you got to send Russ to a team that has never had a black starting quarterback. So why, after Jackson Dart was selected by New York, did they put out a statement that Russell Wilson going to be QB1? Why? Nobody asked that. Nobody even believes it. We shall see. So Andrew Berry knows his way around the circle. I will give Cleveland this. Kevin Stefanski, who people say don't want Shedeur, I didn't pick up on that. If so, he deserves an Oscar. He said, we know who Shedeur is. We've met him multiple times. We know he's going to come in and work. That's what he said. So they could be lying on Kevin Stefanski. It's funny how all of these anonymous people get to keep living another day. That would never exist in any other corporation. Not putting out public defamatory information. Absolutely not. And it should not in this one. So it seems that Cleveland really liked Shedeur as a person. They said they didn't have any negative experience. They had positive experience with Shedeur. They didn't take Shedeur in the first round because they thought his price relative to the draft was too expensive. They didn't think he was worth it. And they're not even happy to get him at the value that they said he is, that he will outwork his draft price, but they still not happy about it. That's why I don't trust Cleveland. How you say he ain't worth it in round 1, but then you get him in round 5 for a bargain? You essentially walked into Hermes and found a Birkin on the floor with a scratch on it. I'm sorry, with no scratches on it. It was just perfect. But because it hit the floor, they're going to let you get it for 70% off. And most people will be happy with that because as much as they cost. So if you thought he was overpriced in round 1, why you not happy you got him for what he said a deal? And why you not happy about it if he's so accurate and talented and his arm isn't an issue? See, their words ain't matching up. I'm not happy about getting him. He had an excellent college career. He's a great pocket passer. He's a good kid. We know he's going to come in and work hard. We know he's going to compete. But you're not happy you have him. He sold the most jerseys. I wonder if they're happy now. I don't think so. Because guess what's finna happen? If he make it on that team, just like he got drafted and wasn't supposed to be, and they let him play and the fans stand up and roar and he gonna make it to QB1. But to be honest with you, I don't understand how you get such a good bargain. Because if I go to any kind of high-end store where things are very expensive and I can get it for 70% off and keep most of my money and look good too, I'm going to be happy. So that's why I don't trust Cleveland. They actually confirmed that New York is lying. So let's see who's in here. There are, I don't know, 200 or 300 of us, 200 of us. Thank y'all so much. If it's 3, awesome, awesome, awesome. Y'all let me know your thoughts. 14 days before the draft, I just posted it in the chat before it started. 14 days before the draft, I already called it. The plot to humiliate Shedeur. Was there a brewing plot to humiliate Shedeur? Click the link, listen to the video. It's not even that long. I outlined what was taking place at the time. And I talk about if this happens to Shedeur, et cetera, YZ, blah, 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 blah. So I had already called it. How you doing, Clyde? How you doing? Hey, Gracie, how you doing? Day 3. Okay, he was day 3. So yeah, when they asked Andrew Berry, what were you thinking when you came in on day 3? And he said, I was like, well, we're going to see how far he goes. Interesting choice of words. Very interesting choice of words for somebody who was projected by everybody to be a first-round draft pick. And they locked him out of the first round. So Andrew Berry's not being honest. He didn't pass him up because his price relative to the draft. He wasn't allowed to draft him in the first round. They didn't even allow drafting of Shedeur to the second round. So yes, Boomer Esiason told us that the owners took Shedeur off the board. When? The second round? Tyler Shaw went number 40. That's the second round. So there's a lot to investigate here because the truth is out there. And you don't even have to look hard. Just what you already know, Shedeur Sanders has a case. These people have violated his civil rights. They plotted against him. This was premeditated. They discriminated against him. This was racial discrimination to preserve the hierarchy, the racial hierarchy for quarterbacks at QB1. So for people who keep asking about 2024, they not safe either. You either going to get it before the draft, you're going to get it in college like Milroe, you're going to get it before the draft like Jalen Hurts, you're going to get pushed down in the draft like Jalen Hurts and Shedeur and Lamar Jackson, or you're going to go number 1 like Caleb Williams and they're going to sack you 66 times. Or like Jaden Daniels and CJ Stroud, you're going to go on to year 1 and you're going to make them some money. But in year 2, Jaden Daniels could easily suffer a sophomore slump, just like CJ Stroud did. The very one whose mental aptitude test results they shared around and made fun of. Or you could be Michael Penix Jr. and you can go to a team and be the best, and then they can bring an older white QB who's not better than you, overpay him, and put him in front of you to start. And when he messes up so badly, now you got to be the savior and fix it. So 2024, class of 2024 ain't safe. It remains to be seen. Is Jaden Daniels going to be CJ Stroud? Sophomore slump. And it's already been said. What are the Texans doing? Because the person that was supposed to be one of the menaces on CJ Stroud's line, allowing him to get sacked, got sent to Washington recently. So what should we expect? The same thing you should already expect for the draft in 2026 when it comes to black QBs. Them trying to hold off the majority of QB1s being black and preserve the racial hierarchy. It's just going to keep on and on unless they decide the quarterback position not important no more because black people trying to get it. So let's move on to a position that they don't hold the majority of. Is that tight ends? That might explain why the Baltimore Ravens tight end couldn't hold on to the ball in the Super Bowl, because the NFL has colluded against Lamar Jackson 3 times. And the Super Bowl, they're not going to let him get. Understand, the Super Bowl is for the players. The money, the TV deals, the merch, the power, the prestige, that's for the owners. That's why they don't want Shedeur in QB1. He already bigger than them. Shedeur sold the most jerseys and was drafted 144. Cleveland act like, yeah, he all right. They act like he a true 6th-round pick. They act like he should have went undrafted. They act like they don't know his value, which is why I don't trust Cleveland. I don't even want Shedeur in Cleveland, but that I don't have nothing to do with it. If he mysteriously gets hurt, don't be surprised. Because as extreme as they have been moving to keep him out of the top spot, which is QB1, if he looked like he gonna get it, I don't think he's safe. Personally, I want him to leave this Cleveland bullshit behind because they didn't want to draft him and they're not happy to have him and they don't appreciate him and they see his value, but they choose not to respect it. I want him to go to Jacksonville where Travis is. Because I saw they stands. They was a little sparse. They actually might be happy to have him. But one of the things I have learned through this process of learning about the NFL, these owners don't think independently. They are incestuous, excessively close. So they're not going to make no move independently. So I don't see that happening. I was like, how did Shedeur get to Jacksonville? Then when I found out that the NFL was the culprit that sent out his phone number to 2,000 people that said Shedeur's new phone number with a waiver wire attached, I said, they going to cut him. And I guess Jacksonville going to pick him up. And somebody say, I think they just going to pimp him out and send him from team to team to team so everybody can make a little change off of him. I'm like, then that would be what I said. He's going to end up like Geno Smith. He's going to have to go from team 1 to team 2 to team 3 different teams in 3 different years and end up somewhere. And then they're going to say, he not good. His legacy is going to be tarnished. Geno Smith got $75 million. And they actually had a good year in Seattle. And Seattle claimed they didn't want to lose him, but they didn't want to pay him. Supposedly, they didn't want to pay him. I felt like they put Geno Smith in Vegas to make sure Shedeur didn't get that QB1 spot. The moment he got drafted or traded for a 3rd-round pick, they were like, Shedeur not going to be QB1. That's all they care about. They don't dislike Shedeur as a person. We're not talking about New York. They have never had a black starting quarterback. So they definitely, somebody over there need to sell the team. The file is, they're not innocent at all, and they did the most. See, we wouldn't have noticed the owners behind the scenes making sure Shedeur failed. We wouldn't have. We questioned it. But with this, what the prank call came through, the prank call confirmed that they were trying to humiliate him. That's why they disconnected the number apparently after they made the call, because they didn't want it to trace back to whomever. So which one of their family members done disconnected their phone? Or did they have a burner? And why? An Ole Miss sweatshirt with a burner to prank Shedeur, or was stupid enough to record and use their phone. So there's evidence that you can go get to identify that person, which has not been done yet. Nor has the NFL been fined for sending Shedeur's phone number to 2,000 people who did not need to know. That action right there, and the phone number in the hands of an Ole Miss sweatshirt guy that they refused to identify, tells you that they were involved from the very top of the NFL. Which is why when I saw Shedeur talking to Roger Goodell at the Super Bowl, he looked uncomfortable and tried to change the conversation and told Shedeur Sanders, I'm worried about your dad. And he said, why? Why are you worried about him? He was guilty then. February 20th was only 2 weeks away from that Super Bowl that I'm talking about. Imagine running into the person you plotting on. You might be a little nervous too. You might want to change the subject and hurry up and change their train of thought so they don't notice that you're nervous. What happened to Shedeur was disgusting. It was racist. They discriminated against him. It was premeditated. And a lot of people knew about it. At minimum, 2,000. And they already planned to cut him. Which is why he in Cleveland, who's not happy to have him. Because they never wanted him. Big hated. Yep. He will get his chance at QB1 in Cleveland. Andrew Berry was asked, do you expect Shedeur Sanders to compete for the position because he's 5th? He's not even on the depth chart. There's only room for 4 people. He's not technically on the team. He got to try to make the team. 5th round players do not get drafted. Do not stay. Only 4 to 5%. And I personally, based off what I showed you today, what I showed you before about them, Cleveland, how they're following, keeping on and continuing the whole entitled farce. I have not seen anything from Cleveland to make me believe that they are going to give him a fair opportunity. And since I know that waiver wire went out with his phone number and they used it to make fun of him, you giving us your phone number, but you about to get cut. Everything points to he's not making the team. They drafted him because they didn't want him. He's at a team with an overcrowded QB room, which lessens his ability to make the team. I have seen nothing that makes me think that they're going to give him a fair chance. I feel I have more hope about Jacksonville than that. But I don't have any hope that the owner of Jacksonville is going to be able to act independently from the group of owners who are incestuous and excessively close. And we watch them ban Shedeur from getting into the league for 5.5 rounds. I have seen nothing that says that. And now that they're being exposed, they likely might want to move away from him because the longer he's on a team, people are going to be talking about the plot to humiliate Shedeur that the NFL, the owners, and the executives hatched and executed and are trying to cover up. So I don't know what his fate holds in the NFL, which is why I said they need to start their own league and turn around and sue this one under the ground. I don't see these people unless they are exposed further. I don't see them making this right. But then God, so we gonna see. But it's gonna even if it is God, he gonna have to do what he did before to a bigger degree, kick that door in, and it's doable. It's doable, but that's what it's gonna take. If it took the president of the United States to call you stupid in a prank that went viral on social media and is tied back to you, and then you do what was supposed to be done, that's what it's going to take for him to make that team. They don't even seem happy to have him, and the man done sold the most jerseys of our rookies. You think they didn't know Shedeur had that kind of star power? What did Stefanski say? We know who Shedeur is. We spent a lot of time with him. They sure did. Stefanski was the one, I do believe, that told Shedeur, you see, the Lord works. I told you the Lord works in mysterious ways. That wasn't the Andrew Berry guy. That's why I wanted to look at the video again to see who was talking. If you notice, Stefanski really truly didn't give off bad vibes, but he just a coach. The GM is the one playing down who Shedeur Sanders is and his talent. Recognizing he has star power and saying, well, we ain't promising you nothing, even though you already a star. And he played. Yeah, they're going to use him to sell jerseys. But that don't mean they're going to keep him on the team, because I'm telling you, as long as Shedeur is on an NFL team, people are going to keep asking questions. We are one identification away from finding out how this all went down and who was all involved in it. We got to the daughter of the GM faster than I ever thought we would. Tomorrow, that we can find out that was his son or his nephew. That meant the inside information was shared, and this plot was hatched, and they chose him, and he heard them talking. They clearly don't want to identify the person in the Ole Miss sweater because they won't talk about it. But it's going to come out. Just like it came out today that is the GM's daughter. And that tells you the owner need to sell the team, because there's no way, had he fired that man after fumbling Saquon Barkley, we would not be here. But I told you the league likes to protect who? At the expense of Black people. So they fumbled Saquon Barkley, and they are the ones that defamed Shedeur Sanders and smeared his reputation and called around with these false narratives and lied on him. Let me be clear. Shedeur Sanders did not do one thing wrong. Everything that they said about him was subjective and a lie. Stephen A. came back on his own podcast and said one of the owners didn't like the fact that Shedeur tweets out with hashtag legendary. What? Kevin Berry even said interviews are not heavily weighted in determining who it is that you want to draft. What did they use against Shedeur? His interviews, he's entitled, he has an entourage. Everybody has an entourage because everybody got a social media team in security. If you're wealthy and you own social media, they don't like him having his own brand. They're afraid his brand is bigger than theirs. I told y'all they scared of this kid. They don't want him to take off the majority. They want him to be a nobody, which is why they are treating Shedeur Sanders like a nobody when his family is a cultural phenomenon. When he's elite and was supposed to go the first round, they locked him out of it. This was all a plot and a subplot to humiliate Shedeur and keep him from becoming QB1 in the NFL. All 32 teams was there at CU Pro Day. Yep. Sure were. Sure were. Wow, these comments going so fast. I'm trying to keep up with y'all. Thank y'all so much. There's a lot of us in here. It's a lot of comments. All right. Let's see. I don't know. I can't see it. I think that's 339. Wow. Okay. Y'all showing me major love. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I'm going to put on some music. We're going to try to read some of these comments. I appreciate y'all. Turn this down just a little bit. I'm going to try to get questions. All right. Let's see what we have here. All things. Who's that? All things. No weapon formed against Shedeur Sanders shall prosper. I totally agree. I say Jeremiah 29:11. I sure wish he could wear number 17 and Jalen Milroe wear number 18. Y'all make sure you check out the audio podcast on Spotify or YouTube for what she said sports. It's called Listen Up. It's audio only. Episode number 6. Is there a brewing plot to humiliate Shedeur Sanders? Check it out. I called it 2 weeks before the draft on April 10th. What she said, it says, I pray for Shedeur. We all should pray for Shedeur, to be honest with you, because I don't think he's safe. I pray for Shedeur Sanders and all the CU buffs in the NFL. Yep, I do too. Thank you for your videos. You're welcome. Congratulations to LaJohntay Wester. We saw him sign his contract today. Several people had the media, and we're happy for him and his girlfriend, Janae, who is, I think, his social media manager. I posted about them in shorts and in videos. She always has on something cute, and they know how to move as a couple. So congratulations to both of them. To LaJohntay for making the NFL and for them making it this far as a couple. They started dating at FAU, which is the school he went to before he came to CU. Tyler Shaw made a post on X about being drafted before Shedeur. Okay, the Saints fans made a song about the Saints. I couldn't play it here because it was a lot of beeps. Safe to say, the Saints fans are not happy. And they actually said in their song they were supposed to get Shedeur, but they got somebody else. It's on Instagram. Giants spent the entire 2024 season with Shedeur. They were at every single one of the games and majority of his practices, and they were not going to draft him. Tomlin looking like Omar Epps. Don't do that to Omar Epps. They got Tomlin looking like Sambo. For real. Advice means do what I say or lose your job. Right. That's exactly it. They want to take somebody like Shedeur and exploit him for his star power, right? Because that's what they're doing. Think about it. Who was it just said that the Giants was at everywhere Shedeur was, right? But they claim that he was unprepared and I'm done with you. If they really wanted Shedeur, it wouldn't have been like that at all. They wanted Jackson Dart. That's all it is. And they decided to defame Shedeur. And no other team defamed Shedeur Sanders other than the Giants. And the reason why they were anonymous and the coach went on the record is because how many times you gonna be anonymous? And you're not gonna say 3 different names from the same organization because then we gonna know it's only you. And see, that's the problem. If you have Pittsburgh on the record saying that they didn't have an issue with Shedeur, and you have Cleveland saying what they had was positive, and you have the Titans saying what they had with Shedeur was positive, because I have a screenshot already. I did a video about it. Why is nobody checking the Giants for being the only organization to defame this person, and they are hiding behind anonymity because it was already proven that the QB coach that made the false statements against Shedeur came from the Giants? Why haven't they been banned from the league, fired from their jobs? Which is why the New York Giants are the team like Donald Sterling that needs to be forced to sell. They just cannot do right. They don't want to win at all. All right, they're trying to fix it with Russell Wilson and my Giants. They plot this. No, they definitely plotted, Queen T. Let's see. It says what? They're trying to fix it with Russell Wilson and my Giants. No, they plot this. No, they definitely plotted. They definitely plotted. You're not going to tell me that Shedeur Sanders' phone number is available for 24 hours and it ends up in the hands of somebody who is related. The son of, the cousin of, the nephew of the New York Giants. No. Sis, if you're not an attorney, you should seriously consider becoming one. That's awesome. Thank you so much. They will probably try to get him injured during practice. Right. I wish his mom is up there. I do. I was on her page. I said, you're a good mom, Pilar. And she is. She riding for her son. That's what she's supposed to do. And she should be up there with him because you can't trust them people. They the only people who think he wasn't good. They lying. They don't want to admit that Shedeur got locked out of the first round because he will become QB1 and he was going to go undrafted. They don't want to admit he in the 5th round because he had somebody had to open the door because they got called out. Everything coming up in Cleveland. Shedeur's name is Marketing Genius. Yep. And I heard his website is sold out. During the draft, fans saw how he was being treated and ran up everything. And it is sold out, which is why we couldn't get it. I was like, I knew I was looking. He sold out. So they say he making money back. And that's what we wanted. So when he get new merch, I'm going to be right there buying it. In my Florida Evans voice, damn. Yep, Tommy. Yep. That's it. Shedeur is. So Queen T said the Giants need to bring proof that Shedeur's interview was bad. I'll wait. His mom asked for it. His mom said, y'all, this was collusion. Where is the evidence from the interviews? Nobody else had bad interviews. There's actually headlines that say the Giants head coach, the whole organization should be thrown in the trash. Matter of fact, just get the team to Shedeur, because if he sue you, you might as well just give it to him. They're going to end up having to settle with him. I'm sorry. Every day they get closer to finding out everything. You know why it's so quiet coming from that direction? Because they exposed that this was a plan at the top. The players weren't hating on Shedeur. I hope every NFL player puts up the Shedeur selling. Whether they score, get a first down, or make an interception. I don't care. It don't matter. It don't matter. I don't trust the Browns. Yeah, I don't trust the Browns. I don't trust the Browns with Shedeur's safety, security, or career. The way that they are acting like he's nothing makes it easy for them to allow him to get hurt. I tell him to go back to college and stick to the NFL. I don't think he can go back to school. If Hunter was second, this was not a no. See, y'all keep looking. I didn't say this was about all black NFL players in the league. I said the race Norman was. Shedeur is a quarterback. Who heard Andrew Berry say what I have already been saying? The quarterback is the most important position on the team. That is the position they are trying to covet. There are people that believe because Cam Ward went first to Tennessee, and this is exactly why Tennessee drafted Cam, that the league could not possibly be being racist against Shedeur Sanders. You're right. It's not just Shedeur Sanders. It's all black quarterbacks, and they have a history of it. This is not racism per se in the draft about all players. I'm not even looking at all players. I don't even follow all players. This is about black quarterbacks. So Cam being taken first is like Caleb Williams being taken first. Shedeur Sanders could essentially be Jaden Daniels at QB1. And then the next QB off the board could have been Jalen Milroe, and he would have been Michael Penix Jr. In fact, he is Michael Penix Jr. It was posted, there was content posted of Jalen Milroe working out in Seattle, and somebody said, we got a Kirk Cousins, Michael Penix situation on our hands, because that's what it is. They didn't just relegate Shedeur Sanders to QB2. They did the same thing to Jalen Milroe. He was drafted number 94. They don't expect him to start. Jalen Hurts was drafted 53. They didn't expect him to start. Somebody had to get hurt. So Seattle has the same thing Atlanta had, a Michael Penix, Kirk Cousins situation. I insist that there was no reason for Sam Darnold to leave Minnesota. Minnesota could have paid Sam Darnold his $100 million because he took them to a good place. But because they want J.J. McCarthy to start, Sam Darnold, like Justin Fields, got the hell on. These people know exactly what they're doing, trying to maintain and preserve the racial hierarchy when it comes to quarterbacks. And so far, with the draft, they got their way. Because instead of 17 and 18, Shedeur 17 tipping the scales to the majority black, is at 16 with Cam Ward. So yeah, they got their way a little bit. But I hope they don't think that's the end of it. And that's probably why Shedeur probably not going to get an opportunity. But guess what? Somebody who's been QB2 for a minute could pop up as QB1 and be the majority while they so focused on Shedeur. They not focused on Milroe. They think they just pushed him down too far to ever consider him being behind a $100 million QB that they just paid. They think they know what they're doing. They think they have calculated things down to the tax. But one of these QB2s, that's why Joe Milton is behind Dak Prescott. That's why Shedeur went to Cleveland, because just in case something happened and he ended up starting, it's still the same black quarterback on the teams. They care about where the players play, who's QB1, and what teams they play for and what divisions they in. They have thought about all this. This is exactly racial. And if you say it's not, it's because you're not informed or you in denial. Oh, okay. All right. So, done. Shedeur is moving in the spirit of truth. His work ethic will reveal all. His work ethic has already revealed all. That's what I keep telling people. Shedeur has done. He earned the first round, whether it was 1 or 21. I don't care if it was 1 or 32. That messes with his money. See, there's a lot of things going on here. Pushing these guys down not only keeps them out of QB1 unless somebody get hurt, it negates their career earnings, and they're going to always be behind their peers. So, yeah, people saying he should just go there, put his head down, and work hard. He already did that. And they weren't going to draft him because it's not about that. Clearly, the draft is not about talent. The draft is clearly not about talent. That's what Stephen A. pointed out. Well, the NFL draft is not about talent. This was after multiple conversations, inside and out, that certain teams don't care to win. New York is one of them. Before we said Dallas, now we can safely say New York does not want to win. They do not want to win. New Orleans does not want to win. That's 3 of 32. And Tennessee could be the same way. It was said on this podcast, if Will Levis is still on the roster, Cam Ward is not safe. And I want people to know, Atlanta didn't even announce who the starter was going to be to the start of the season. So they went all summer long, letting people believe that it could possibly be Michael Penix Jr. Tammy, can Shedeur ask for a trade? I doubt it, because it didn't seem to go over well when Deshaun Watson asked for a trade. Done, Casey, done. Cam Ward first is as an arrogant, disrespectful person. This was not about, now you don't understand. It's not about who's drafted first. It's about who's the majority of the starting quarterbacks, the QB1s. And for people who think you could be a starter if you play 5 games, no, a QB1 plays the majority of the season. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate you. Shedeur is God. Soon as he got picked, glory. Yeah, he did. Shedeur, thank God, as soon as he got picked. That is actually facts. And that's what came of this process. People were like, this young man is tough, not just physically, but mentally. So we see he's physically tough and he's mentally tough. Shedeur even said it. They're trying to play God. Everything we talked about, the whole waiver wire coming out of the email sent by the NFL itself and his phone number to 2,000 people, Coach Prime found that out too. That man does not play about his kids. And because he's not saying anything does not mean there's not something happening behind the scenes. These people got exposed in a major way, and the dots are connecting. The last piece to the puzzle is who is wearing the Ole Miss sweater. That's the last piece. Who they related to? Joe Flacco, if y'all have not noticed, will help to develop QBs than anybody on record. He doesn't mind coming off the bench and has for I don't even think it's that. I think Shedeur and these guys will be solid, but that's not what this is about. See, this is not about if Shedeur puts his head down and works well, they'll give him an opportunity. They already, you heard them say, we know he gonna work hard. They don't care. That's not what it's about. The fact that they are downplaying who he is and understanding the fact that he comes with star power and he was a damn good QB in college and trying to say his price was too high because he was a pocket passer, which is the same false narrative they were pushing that the NFL don't want before the combine, where all the bullshit started, the bullshit narrative started, tells you that Cleveland is playing the same game that was played during the NFL draft. That is why I don't trust Cleveland. Stefanski might like Shedeur. He might believe that guy works in mysterious ways. But that does not mean that Cleveland as an organization and their GM respects Shedeur Sanders and will allow him a fair opportunity to compete and are not playing the same game, hold him back, push him down that the NFL itself played during the draft. This is all could be performative from the organization, and there ain't nothing the coach could do about it. Because I told you what happened with Mike Tomlin. He went from 2 black quarterbacks to 2 white ones, and he didn't have a choice in the matter. Because the NFL is telling you what kind of quarterbacks they want. And it don't have nothing to do with pocket passing and dual threat. They illustrated that. All right. Flacco was home chilling. They called him sitting on the couch. Right. Right. And the question is, does the NFL even care what the fans think? No. You think the NFL doesn't know that the fans like Shedeur? Yeah. Of course they know that. But that's how you know this is not about his talent. This isn't about Shedeur as a person. This is about maintaining the racial hierarchy when it comes to quarterbacks. And Cam Ward being picked first does not mean he's safe. Ask Caleb Wilson. Ask Bryce Young. Ask Justin Fields. Shit, ask Jalen Hurts. Ask Russell Wilson. Ask Tyrod Taylor. Ask Geno Smith. Where is Malik Willis? Deion True, and technically speaking, Dylan is a man of color. He's Polynesian. He's not black, though. We're not talking about people of color. And he is QB4. So even if he was black, he got a long road to go too. So I know what you're saying. We're not talking people of color. We're talking black people. So even if they factor that in, hell, he number 4 too. So maybe that's why him and Shedeur got to fight about it. I don't know. But Shedeur not even on the team technically. Okay, Casey, thank you when I see him. We'll see how Russell Wilson does over there in New York. I ain't worried about how Russell Wilson do. I'm worried about how the Giants are playing in his face. And are they even really going to give him the opportunity to start? And is it going to be the majority of the games? Or are they going to stop him right before they get to the majority part? Because that's what happened in the NFL draft. Right when you get to the majority where it's cemented, things happen. Things happen. The Giants have had 2 black starting QBs. They have not. Tyrod Taylor nor Geno Smith were starters. They were QB2s. They were not QB1s. We are talking about the majority of QB1s, which are the starters in the league. People keep saying that, and that's why I keep repeating it. No, no, no. Matter of fact, the Giants were the last team to actually have a black quarterback. So it's not, I guess you could say, shocking that they would fight having a black starting quarterback. So we're going to see what they do during the season. We're going to see if Cleveland cuts Shedeur. And I really don't care what happens in New York, because I don't want to watch anything about New York. I saw him as well with Roger Goodell and Jerry Jones. Shedeur was with his dad. I call BS from their people. Right. Damon, he has better chances of starting in Cleveland, and he is the toughest division AFC North. That proves the owners were wrong. Damon, I love you, but no. They don't question his abilities at all. There were 31 NFL scouts and executives at Colorado's home opener this year. Shedeur's skill set is not a question. The narrative they push before the combine, the NFL does not want quarterbacks, plural, like Shedeur Sanders. Even if that meant pocket passers, because you heard Barry say he's a retro old school style QB, which means that's the justification to devalue his skill set. But then at the number 2 spot where they're supposed to take Shedeur, they take a white retro style pure pocket passer who is not even better than Shedeur. So it has nothing to do with that. Absolutely nothing. Okay, if I see him, I'm looking. Okay, Marie, yes, I will. Soon, I don't see the person, but thank you, Casey. I shall. Thank you. Cleveland Browns let the tight end go in the offseason. Oh, okay. That's James. Okay. Hey, James. What God has for Shedeur, they cannot take away. It is already written. That's what we say. Well, that's clearly proven. That's clearly proven in the NFL draft, but that does not mean I'm going to be happy that he got to suffer some more in Cleveland because they keeping up the same charade that the NFL and the NFL draft did. I don't want that for Shedeur. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Billups. Shedeur earned the starting job. I don't think I am God's love. I'm paying right attention to the chat. That's actually all I'm doing right now. I just don't see the people they're talking about. I think they're already blocked. Mac. Him being cut for the Browns is not a bad thing. I agree. But if you know you're going to cut somebody before the draft, then maybe, not treat them like you don't want them. What I'm saying is these people have already decided what they are going to do with Shedeur. Now, yeah, we're going to wait and see what God does. But in the meantime, we don't want Shedeur to get harmed in any way. That's what I'm saying. I don't need to see him. I don't need to see Shedeur upset or hurt or humiliated any further or treated like he's not valuable or he's not wanted. Thank you, Casey. I do. I actually have moderators. They're just not on right now, I don't think. So I appreciate that. And there's so many people in the chat. Honestly, I can't even keep up with it. I think we tipped 300 tonight. Because some of y'all's comments are from earlier. The whole debacle has made him legendary. That's facts. Shedeur, the way he handled this, he knew before going into this that they were trying to play God. So he knew to wait on God. And Shedeur is coming out smelling like roses. And you would think that Cleveland would stop the BS. This is the first draft in a minute that a black QB is not a primary dual threat. Trey Lance, Lamar Jackson, Anthony Richardson. This will be the first draft in a minute that a black QB isn't Cam Ward a primary dual threat? CJ Stroud, etc. didn't have Sanders' arm. Okay, thank you for sharing that. Thanks, James. Right, exactly. Shedeur being legendary. And Stephen A saying the owner said they didn't like him tweeting legendary. That's looking for something to find fault because that's manifestation. That's manifestation. And they didn't even give him the benefit of the doubt, which means they were just looking for something. They were just looking for a reason to justify maintaining the racial hierarchy or at least preventing it from changing to the majority black of QB1s. That's ridiculous to say. Nothing they said about Shedeur was factual, which is why what? Which is why the head coach of the New York Giants is what they say dodging questions about the information he put out about Shedeur and his interviews. Shedeur Sanders' mom, Pilar, has called it collusion and asked, I'm going to need you to put the evidence out. These people have a case. The Sanders family has a case. I just wish Shedeur was at a team that wasn't treating him like they, don't value him because they trying to say trying to follow the narrative that his skill set is outdated, but that's exactly who they took at the number 2 spot. He was just white. AFC North is frozen hell division. Johnny said NFL stands for they do not really want black. Thank you. I mean, that's obviously true, Johnny, because the hell that they have put black quarterbacks through. Whoo. Anthony said, quick, Shedeur needs to go back. Who is that? For his last year. Right, because he's not on the team. And I don't even think he could go back to school right now, I don't think. He was a senior, unless he has grad eligibility or something like that. Maybe he could. For people who say a black QB went first need to understand the slave owner picked the slave to beat in front of the other slaves so that they know to stay in line. Right. And people already pointed out that Nashville giving Cam Ward hell. I'm like I said, just because you picked you don't mean you safe. Sometimes people get picked to block other people out the spot. That has been happening to Shedeur. That happened to Shedeur with the Heisman. People said Dylan Gabriel got picked to keep Shedeur off the stage. They didn't want Coach Prime to have 2 Heisman candidates. I'm pretty sure they didn't want Coach Prime to have Travis and Shedeur, which maybe why Cleveland was supposed to get both of them. And the owner's response was, I guess I didn't think about it like that, which means he's lying. So you didn't realize that you traded away Travis Hunter. And in the 5th round, you traded up to get to Shedeur Sanders. But that morning, you say you was going to watch and see how far he falls. So you were expecting him to keep falling until Trump and the prank came through. These people be telling on themselves. They be so busy trying to talk in circles that they're telling on themselves. That's why the media keep asking certain questions. Travis and Shedeur both could have been picked by the Browns. How badly do the Browns want to win to pass up on the dynamic duo? Oh, well, I couldn't pick Shedeur no way, so it wasn't going to happen. And since I couldn't pick Shedeur and get the dynamic duo, I'm going to trade away Travis. For who? For who? Who did they get? Does anybody know? His arm is better than all of theirs at the same rookie time and place, right? And they try to act, and Cleveland, the GM is in particular, is trying to act like Shedeur isn't wanted. We had to take him. We don't consider it a blockbuster deal or acquisition. Like he not Shedeur Sanders. Like he didn't just win the Johnny Unitas Award. Like that's crazy. Like he wasn't a Heisman candidate. They trying to downplay who he is. Hit the likes. Thank you for that so much. Thank you for that so much. I shall when I see the people. Thank you, Casey. Thank you for hitting the like button. Thank you for making that request. Thank y'all. Jersey retired as CU. Go Browns. Yep. Hopefully they have a good season. Tom Brady didn't teach him to be a dual threat, to be himself. To be a dual threat. To be himself wasn't a dual threat. Use that missile launcher and do the pitch count. Oh, okay, James. Okay. All right. Audibles and play action is what Brady showed him. Okay. Please don't forget what the Chicago Bears owner and management did to Justin Fields. Right. That's exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. People feel like this just happened for the first time. No, this was just the most extreme case. This was just the most extreme case. They give these guys hell. This was the most extreme case. They brush under the rug what they don't want to talk about. Justin Tucker situation. They're not going to even talk about the GM's daughter being the one who's connected to Jackson Dart with the caller from Ole Miss. What is the connection? Because he's with the executive of Atlanta's son. They're not going to talk about that. They would have y'all believe that the defensive coordinator's son made the call, and that's not the case at all. They don't want to talk about the truth. They don't want to talk about who this is right here. They don't want to identify this person. They don't even want to get close to identifying who the person is. That's just more the same. It's a big cover up. It's a big cover up. They don't want to tell you who this guy is with this Ole Miss shirt on because it points back to the New York Giants and the defensive coordinator of the Atlanta Falcons. Hunter to Jacksonville, Shiloh to the Bucks. Shedeur should ask for a trade. I don't think he should do that. I think he's going to have to wait on God to open the next door. While y'all arguing over who she blocked, hit the like button. Thank you, Tommy. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I hear you all day, but still go Browns. Okay, David, that's cool, but we're going to be asking you some questions because clearly you're a Browns fan, so you might be in the know. Thank you. Thank you, Papa. Thank you so much. There's Gracie. Hey, Gracie. Thank you so much. So y'all, Gracie's in the chat. Y'all probably know that already, though. 22. No, I really do think. I think he know Coach Prime. That's what I think. I also think that his friend wants to buy the Saints, and this is a good inroads because now they need. See, the league needs protection now. They need protection from either a massive lawsuit or they need some kind of protection from the Justice Department or the Attorney General, especially the Giants and the league itself. They need protection from him now, which is probably why they drafted him. Thank you, David. Somebody needs to leak the anonymous person like they did, leak that number. Yep, Tommy. And you know what I was thinking? I said to myself, because yesterday, on this podcast, somebody had posted, the NFL is on demon time. And I quoted Kendrick Lamar and said, everybody want to be on demon time until they get slayed by a demon. So who gonna be the demon to tell the truth? or be self-serving and do something for themselves that benefits them, but we get to the truth. I think it's coming. I just don't know who it's gonna be, because the league needs protection right now. The Sanders family, Shedeur Sanders, and even Deion Sanders Jr., who was harassed by Emmanuel Acho, have a case. Giants will stand 0-3, and Leak gonna ask for a trade. Oh, okay, yeah, because he wasn't happy. Malik Neighbors wasn't happy. Alvin Kamara was definitely not happy. I think he happy his house is already for sale, so all he got to do is not come back. But he got 2 years left. Brian Daboll is the face of all the hate throwing at Shedeur. Yep, and now he's trying to back away from what he said. That's facts. That's facts. That is facts. You're right about that. Let's see. Yeah, this was all a plot that got exposed. And now they like, okay, what we going to do now? What we going to do now? And that's what they trying to figure out. Putting up the lies that were told. And the owners didn't have to believe the lies. They chose to. And they knew it wasn't a lie. They all figured out they were going to do this. This was all orchestrated. They just didn't know they were going to get exposed. And they clearly underestimated how much people like the Sanders as a family, Coach Prime as a person, and Shedeur Sanders as a person. Shedeur Sanders has 3 million followers. They follow him because they like him for the most part. So basically, there are 3 million people out there who are disgusted. Some of them buying jerseys, buying his merch, calling out the league on social media. I mean, there are people we can't see in high places who are actively have things going on behind the scenes. His family, his sister DeAndrea, his mother, Miss Pilar, and his brother, Deion Sanders Jr. are on it. The Saints and Giants have not drafted a black QB in the first round in franchise history, and it wasn't going to change now. Right. And that's what Cam Jordan was saying. He just said, he didn't say it that way. He just said, the Saints have never drafted a QB1 in the first round since Archie Manning. That's how he said it. And that's a name that keep popping up. Facts. The more the GM talks, the more he dig a hole for himself. Right, because he really gave them a reason to fire him. When a reporter asked the question, what did you think on the morning of the draft when he was still there in the 5th round? We're going to see how low he goes. That's one. The other one is him acting like he don't like Shedeur. We didn't think this was a blockbuster deal. This young man is number 1 in jersey sales for Browns jerseys. So you need to change your tune and show some respect and appreciation. And stop acting like he a slacker when he's not, because you're using the same entitled trope that the Giants organization used. All the while, you're telling us that you had a good experience with him. So you're not innocent in any of this. You say you were never going to draft him. When you made that decision, you had dinner with Shedeur and Travis after CU's pro day. And I didn't say right afterwards. Sometime afterwards. I think we went through a lot of the comments, so that's good. Okay, y'all. So I feel like this is a good place to rest on our Shedeur Sanders series. Everybody loves Shedeur. It's facts. Shedeur came out of this smelling like roses. The league came out of it looking prejudicial, racist, defamatory. liars. It's selling their brand. The takeaways is we now see the draft is not about talent. And there are several teams that are not about winning. They don't care what the fans think. They lied to cover up. This was a premeditated plot to publicly embarrass or humiliate Shedeur Sanders. To preserve, all in an effort to preserve the racial hierarchy at QB1. I did not say QB2. I did not say wide receiver. I said at QB1. And the league already has been accused of badly discriminating against black QBs in the draft. This is not new. It's just the most extreme case. And it happened in front of 7 million people. They're not new to publicly humiliating black QBs. Whether they're sharing their test results with the same 2,000 people that got Shedeur Sanders' phone number, or they trying to embarrass them live during the draft or make them appear to be undesirable or plotting them against them as a whole. It's not new. All right, so we're going to get ourselves out of here. Y'all did an excellent job tonight. I appreciate y'all. I think we actually tipped at 300 people tonight. Thank you so much. So we'll be back tomorrow night with, we're probably going to start looking at the guys' schedules since we know where everybody went. I think 15 of 16 people now have opportunities with pro football clubs and leagues, including Canada. So what we'll do is start taking a look at who's where and who plays who. All right, y'all. Thank y'all so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'll see y'all tomorrow night. We're going to let Alabama State, ASU, take us out with Shedeur. Is it a crime? All right. Thank y'all so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate you. Give y'all a second to wrap up your conversations while I get this video loaded. All right. Thank you, thank you, thank you.